and welcome to Fourth and Inches Arizona State Edition. I'm Jordan D'Souza alongside Nate Smith and Christian Egger-Bide. But before we get into this weekend's action, Nate, how was your weekend?
Well, can't complain. Living and breathing another day. This weekend was a good one, as most are. One of my good friends, Dave Folds, took the visit out from Southern California. He goes to SDSU. Him and some of his frat buddies were here this weekend for a flag football tournament. So it was good to see him. We hung out Thursday night, and then I went to one of his games over the weekend. So it was a good time to see him. He's one of my best friends from back home. Known him since elementary school. So it's always a good time to visit each other at opposing schools. Other than that, just hung out with the other friends that also go here at ASU. Went to a couple parties, watched some great football over the weekend, college and NFL. So, no complaints, just a really quality weekend overall.
Christian, how about yourself?
Yeah, I just got to echo what Nate said. Obviously, Dave, one of my close friends as well, coming from our hometown, visiting us is always fun. And, rest of the weekend just went pretty well. Watched some football. Me and Nate and Jordan did roll to this party. And as I recall, me and Jordan walked in and just took over the water pong table and just started going off. Just went undefeated on the night. It was unreal. But, overall, it was a really great weekend. And looking forward to going over this ASU football information.
Definitely a good weekend. I'm going to echo what these two guys said. Nothing really out of the ordinary, just hanging with some good dudes, watching America's sport. So we're going to dive into this football game here. It was a close one for a while, but the final score, the Utah Utes take down the Arizona State Sun Devils 49-26. Nate, what about this game stood out to you most?
Well, I was kind of surprised with how ASU hung in the game. Until Utah scored 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, it was actually pretty close throughout, believe it or not. We've been bagging on Manny Wilkins a lot lately, but he did finish with 309 passing yards and 1 touchdown, which is a pretty good stat line. You got to hand it to him. But he did have 2 picks. Turnovers continue to haunt him and the entire ASU team. I think another bright spot for our offense, at least, Kalen Ballage with a great performance, 46 yards rushing, 118 receiving with a touchdown. This dude's an absolute stud. I think if he keeps on the way he's going, he might be a draft pick. But I don't know. It just seems like the same old story for us. Ended up losing by a score of 49-26. Started off the game well. Started off with a 13-0 lead and just kind of lost momentum after that and never really gained it back. But, this is kind of what we expected. Utah's a better team, definitely 15th ranked in the country. So I guess I was pleased with how he hung in, but kind of expected the result.
Also, a little fun fact, this is the second week in a row where Arizona State starting quarterback did not have the highest QBR on the team. So that goes to another position player in N'Keal Harry. There are definitely some positives to be taken away from this game. Kalen Ballage had a great game. N'Keal Harry had a good game. And we also did kind of remain close in the game with Utah. But, Christian, what is your main positive that you're going to take away from this game?
Well, for us to hold a team like Utah to only 28 points through 3 quarters is actually pretty good, considering how our defense has played throughout the season. So we were right there with them after 3 quarters, 28-26. And then, we just got absolutely demolished in the fourth quarter. They outscored us 21-0, and, there goes the game. So it kind of just showed how maybe we don't have the stamina as a team to hang in for all 4 quarters with these top Pac-12 teams. But just the fact that we were able to hang in, jump out to an early lead against Utah. But the thing is, when you jump out to an early lead against a good team like this, you really got to hammer it home and just keep playing well. You can't have a let up in the second half like we did, only scoring 6 points in the whole second half. So that's just what we need to work on. So basically just got to work on playing a full 4 quarters.
No, yeah, really. The one thing we really were missing was that all-important fourth quarter. We played a great game in the first 3 quarters. We really kept it close, but Fourth quarter really slipped away from us. Defense wasn't playing sharp. Manny Wilkins threw a pick six. But overall, Nate, were you surprised by this outcome at all? Like, what were some of your expectations going into this game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think going into the game, we expected ASU's defense and ASU's secondary to struggle. And, through the first three quarters, as Christian mentioned, we kind of kept this offense at bay. But that all disappeared in the fourth quarter. I mean, their receiver, Raylon Singleton, ended with 116 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. And their quarterback, Troy Williams, nearly 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, that's a masterful performance. When you're playing a quarterback that's playing that well, it's tough to beat anyone, especially a good quality overall team such as Utah. They have an 8-2 overall record, 5-2 in the Pac-12. So this team's been good all year. I think we just have to find a way to play better at home. Last 2 games recently at home, it doesn't really seem like we've even had a home field advantage. I don't know if that can be blamed on the fans or just how the team has been playing overall. Maybe the fans aren't showing up this late in the season. But usually, when you jump out to an early lead at home, you can usually sustain it, but that wasn't the case here. So they have a lot of things to work on.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like the same old Sun Devils. And it doesn't really look like anything's going to be changing next year, as athletic director Ray Anderson came out with a statement saying that Todd Graham will be the head coach next year. Nate, what are some of your reactions to this statement?
I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not, because it just seems like for some reason Todd Graham is just beloved by this entire ASU organization. Yes, he did have 2 10-win seasons, but football, along with life, is a what have you done for me lately kind of business, and maybe it hasn't been good. Last year, ASU wasn't good. This year, they're not good. So I don't get it. There must be some sort of personal connection I'm missing, or some coaching style I'm missing that our administration at ASU just seems to love from Todd Graham. I just don't know. I mean, he hasn't won for the past 2 years. And I think the bigger issue than that is just the amount of talent that we're pulling in. I mean, the Pac-12 is probably the second most popular conference in football, maybe third behind SEC and the Big Ten. And just, ASU is traditionally one of the top 4 to 5 schools within that conference. So you'd think that our talent level would be high enough to compete and to win games. But it just only seems like we beat teams that are not good at all. It doesn't seem like we've competed with a good team in a while, like the past few years. And it just seems like, talk about lack of talent, but especially at the quarterback position, Manny Wilkins is just not that talented, plain and simple. He's struggled all year. He played pretty well in this past game, I'll give him that. But the recruiting class, we've seen Dylan Sterling Cole this year because of injury, and he was supposed to be very good, but he's nothing special. Brady White, we saw a small sample size of, but honestly, he wasn't too impressive either. So, no, I really don't understand the move, and to me, it doesn't make sense for the team.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like Todd Graham has kind of fallen behind the whole learning curve here. I mean, his on-field coaching hasn't really been what we needed it to be, and recruiting hasn't really been what we needed it to be. So it's kind of like a thing where I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last year, or next year will be his last year coaching Arizona State. Christian, what are some of your reactions to this?
Well, like Nate said, I'm not necessarily surprised with it. We talked in earlier segments about whether we thought he'd be around for another year or two. And I said, yes, I did think he would be, just because, he's only 2 years removed from a 10-win season. So he had a bad year last year and now another bad year. So I expected them to give him another shot just because he's been there a few years, just to try to prove that he can win with this team. But that's another thing. It's not like he's new. He's been here for, a number of years. These are his guys that he's recruited, that he's taken the field with, and they're just not getting it done, which speaks to, maybe his recruiting ability. Obviously, like Nate said, the Pac-12 is very competitive recruiting-wise. It garners some of the top recruits in the entire country. So when you're playing in a competitive environment like that, you really got to step it up and try to get the best guys you can. And just looking at how we've performed with teams within our conference, against other Pac-12 teams, we haven't been good. We're 2-5 within the conference. So squeaked out a win against Cal and one against a Rosenless UCLA team. So just the interconference play has got to get better, because that's what recruits usually look at is how are you playing against these other top schools, Oregon, Wazoo, Utah, schools like that. So it's going to come down to next year whether he can beat some of these Pac-12 teams, or else he's eventually going to have to go, because, just win, baby. That's what Al Davis says. So that's what you got to do.
Now I'm just going to hit the rewind button. So around 4 weeks ago, we were sitting at 5-1. We were sitting here at the podcast, and I posed a question that kind of seemed a little outlandish at the time. And it was, what do you think the odds are that Arizona State does not make a bowl? I mean, we all know that we need 6 wins to make a bowl. So going into the week against Colorado, we were sitting at 5-1, and now advanced 4 weeks, and we're 5-5 with two games left, one against Washington, one against the University of Arizona. And I know a lot of people's expectations weren't really high for this team, but I mean, looking after we came off of our win against UCLA, a lot of people expected us to at least get to that 6-win mark and get into a bowl. Nate, what do you put our odds at for getting into a bowl at the end of this year?
Let's put it this way. If I were a betting man, which I am, I would bet heavily against us making a bowl. I do not think it is very likely. We play at Washington, which is a very hard place to play, not to mention they're the 4th best team in the nation. They did just lose to USC, but USC is way better than us, so I don't think we can really look at that game. Play at Washington, no way we win there. Only chance we have is last game of the season at Arizona. Rivalry games tend to be close no matter the talent on each side. It just always seems to work out that way. Emotions will be running high. It's the day after Thanksgiving. I believe it's a Friday, the 25th of November. It is at Arizona. Playing away is tough, especially in a rivalry situation. Arizona's also been very bad this year. They're actually 0-7 in conference. I mean, we haven't been good either. We're 2-5. So I think we have about equal level talent. So that honestly will probably be a really competitive game. We do have a shot to win that one. No shot against Washington, but overall, I don't think we will make a bowl. And you know what? Maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what the program needs to, just kind of get that sort of slap in the face and try to use that momentum and like that feeling of defeat and to fuel the fire next year, because this year started off well, but it's been a disaster over the past 4 weeks.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like. I mean, we were 5-1 coming out of the UCLA. A lot of people thought we deserved to be ranked, and then I think we just missed the rankings or the top 25. And then to finish the year on a 6-game losing streak, that would just be absolutely ridiculous. Christian, what are your odds for us making a bowl this year?
Well, I'm going to agree with Nate. I don't think it's very good, just because you go to Washington, you got to travel there, play in a very rowdy stadium against one of the top 10 teams in the country for sure, and they're obviously very talented. So that's on November 19th, and then just 6 days later, so they have a short week with that Friday game at Arizona. So then you gotta leave Washington, come home maybe for a few days, then you're off to Tucson, where you got to play another away game against probably an equally rowdy crowd, because it's a rivalry game. Everyone's going to be hyped, and it's a short week. So I definitely don't give us very good odds to win either of these games. And I like what Nate said about, maybe it's good for the program if they don't make a bowl game this year, because I think just the whole culture has got to change. And, when you lose, let's say they do win a game and they end up going 6-6, when you go 6-6 and still make a bowl game, there might be an idea throughout the program like, oh, that's cool, we still made a bowl game, it was a successful year. And that's just not the case. I mean, going 6-6 should not be a goal for a program. So I think, it might be better if they don't make a bowl game and they have to look at themselves in the face and say, all right, what can we do to get better so we're not, at the bottom of this Pac-12 South division?
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good for us in terms of getting to that 6th win. And then we definitely have to face a tough team, like you guys said, in Washington. Nate, if you were a betting man, which we cleared up you are indeed a betting man.
Tend to be, yes.
Okay, so
History shows.
Okay, so let's just go with the facts. You are a betting man. Who are you taking in this game this coming Saturday against Washington?
The Washington ASU game?
Yeah, who are you going to bet on?
You know,
You're going to bet all your money.
it's a tough call. I think I'll have to go with the boys in purple.
The boys in purple eyes in Washington. Okay,
Yes.
that actually seems to be the popular bet. I know ESPN's matchup predictor has Washington in favor by 94.4%. Not really a math guy, but then that leaves ASU with another 5.6% chance at victory. So it's not looking good, to say the least. I mean, if you just look at any statistical category in comparison between us and Washington, like, they win. So, Nate, what do you think are some of the things that we're going to have to do in order to pull out this upset?
Well, let's see. It's going to be a laundry list of things. First, we're going to need to score at least 30 points to even give ourselves a chance in this game. Washington has been very good all year. Their offense has been good. Their defense has been good. Their quarterback, Browning, has 35 touchdowns and only 5 picks, over 2,500 yards passing. So, along with scoring 30 points, just to give you guys an idea, the spread of this game opens up at minus 27 in favor of Washington.
That's a lot of points.
They have a receiver by the name of John Ross who is very good at football. We're gonna have
That's a good analysis.
gonna have to contain him. Gonna have to contain Browning. Gonna have to somehow hold this offense to under 30 points. If we can score 30 and somehow hold them to under 30, we're gonna have a chance. But realistically, I don't really see that happening. Washington's averaging almost 500 yards a game, and on the other side of the ball, we allow over 500 yards a game. So put 2 and 2 together, which I don't do very well because I'm not good at math. But, oh yeah, that's 4. AKA, that's over 500 yards on each side. We're in some trouble. We're already allowing copious amounts of yards to opponents that are not as good as Washington, and Washington actually is really good. So we might be in for a long day.
Yeah, it's really not going to be looking good for us. I actually have one theory on how we could pull out the win. I call this my snakes on a plane theory. Have you guys seen the movie?
No.
Yeah, Samuel. So my snakes on a plane theory is pretty similar to the movie Snakes on a Plane, where we just take a bunch of venomous snakes and release it in the Washington Huskies locker room before the game, rendering some of them unable to play. Maybe if we get enough of those snakes to bite the players, we'll have to forfeit the game, giving us our 6th win and our bowl berth. So that's just an idea. Christian, what are some of your ideas for how we could possibly win this game?
Well, yeah, Nate already went over the stats a little bit, but just looking at Washington putting up 44.8 points per game, that's certainly a lot. This team knows how to score. They run and gun. They're rushing for over 200 yards a game. That's insane, to rush for an average of 200 yards a game. So obviously we need to stop the run, but we've been, relatively good in that area throughout the season. The really tough part for us is the pass. So like Nate said, stopping the passing game is definitely going to be priority number 1. Ross has 15 touchdowns in the receiving game, so he's definitely electric. But yeah, I mean, our defense is just going to have to step up and play much better than we have against Pac-12 opponents. And even if our defense does play well, I'm not fully confident our offense can do much against the Washington defense. So, I always say any given Saturday, but a whole lot of things are going to have to fall into place if we are to cover the minus 27 spread and even maybe get a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Sun Devils have reached that there's always next year phase of the season. And especially with Todd Graham coming back, looks like it's going to be the same old Sun Devils. Nate, are you going to expect anything different from the Sun Devils coming into next year?
As far as their season for next year?
As far as anything.
Well, I mean, if we're starting Manny Wilkins, no, I don't think we can expect much, because it's pretty clear to me that he's not really the answer at quarterback. I think that if we can either recruit someone else or develop another quarterback that we already have, such as Sterling Cole or Brady White, then maybe we got a shot to do some things. But, I mean, the issues go beyond the quarterback position. The defense has to improve. The rush defense and the pass defense, both of them. And not only that, I just think the culture has to change completely. We haven't been winning lately. And, in order to be taken seriously as a university, you got to win. So I think they got to make some serious changes. But for next year, as long as Todd Graham's here, no, I don't really see them coming anytime soon.
Yeah, this Arizona State team is definitely just throwing up a lot of question marks. I mean, sometimes their defense will look great, other days their defense will look lackluster. So there's definitely just a lot of inconsistencies with the team. And I think that all starts with the head coach. Christian, do you see any changes next year with the team as Todd Graham returns?
Well, I sure hope so, but I feel like that's kind of a disillusioned view because Todd Graham's going to come back and, he's probably going to recruit this summer the same way he's been recruiting the last 4 or 5 years. And I think he's probably set in his ways, not going to make many changes to how he does things. So I think the Sun Devils will probably come out next year, win a few non-conference games, and then just get devoured by the Pac-12 because, if you don't have the best recruits, you will get eaten in the Pac-12. It's a football team world. So that's just the way of things. So I don't know. I think it would really be good to get a change, just in the whole way of thinking around the Arizona State football team. And obviously Todd Graham has not shown that he's the guy who can instill that type of attitude in the team. So I don't expect many things to change.
Yeah, I feel like I've said this a lot on this podcast, but it's not looking good for the Sun Devils right now. But all we can do is hope and pray that we can pull out the upset this coming Saturday against Washington. This has been 4th and Inches. I'm Jordan D'Souza.
I'm Nate Smith.
And I'm Krishna Urbita.
And thanks for stopping by.